Good. Tell you all a little bit about me. Excuse me. I was born and raised in Florida. I grew up in Daytona Beach. I started cleaning boats at the age of 10. Always had the itch for fishing, hang out at the docks, and just wanted to throw the fish on the dock for all the charter boats. At the age of 12, I started riding along with the charter boats during the summer. They let me be a second mate, do all that fun stuff. I get to rig all the baits and ice the boat, clean the fish, and yeah, ate up with it. At the age of 18, excuse me, I went to the Bahamas and went blue marlin fishing for the first time. Got to experience that, and seeing a blue marlin for the first time, I was like, wow, pretty cool. And for the last, say, 17 years or so, I've been traveling the world blue marlin fishing. Sorry guys, I'm nervous, first time. Bear with me. So yeah, last 17, 18 years, been traveling the world blue marlin fishing, and then I moved to Fort Pierce about 8 years ago, and come to work on a Lucas at private sport fishing boat at the Pelican Yacht Club. And in 2020, we won a big blue marlin tournament in North Carolina. I had a big chunk of change, and I was like, hey, what am I going to do with it? So I decided to start me a charter business. And I bought a 31-foot contender, sits at Little Jim's, and called Hittin Bottom Charters. And yeah, here we are now, a few years later, and made up with it. I get to be home, get to see my family, and life's good. So today I'm kind of going to talk about summertime fishing. What I do to make a day out of a charter here. So basically, you know, I start my day out. I catch live bait on my days off. I got one of the big bait pens to keep it in the water at the Pelican, so I don't have to waste too much time catching bait for people. Excuse me. Here, can I move that 1 second? Sorry, guys. So I have a big bait pen at the Pelican. I store all my bait, so when I get my charter to the boat, I don't have to waste too much time catching bait. So typically, I'll leave the island at 7, head offshore, and then I always like to stop and try to catch a few dozen baits in the morning. It's always good to have fresh bait. So, you know, a lot of times our thread fins will be outside the inlet, or if I'm fishing down in the south, I'll stop by 12 buoy, try to catch more sardines, put the time in, because like I said, you can never have too fresh a bait. So when I run the buoy, so if I'm trying to catch my thread fins and things like that, there's R&R tackle. You have 8 hooks, gold hooks. I like anywhere between a number 6 or a number 8 sabiki. I love green for my thread fins. And then on the sardines, here I got one here for y'all. I love the number 4s to the number 6s. I like the red for my sardines. And then also with the sabikis for the sardines, I like to fish a lighter lead. I'll fish a 1 ounce. Here's a 2 ounce. I like to fish for my thread fins. A little bit heavier. It keeps the rig from tangling up so much. And then the 1 ounce, a little bit smaller. And they will tangle you up. As soon as you get a bite, you kind of got to lock your bail up and hope they don't tangle you all up. But I definitely feel like the red definitely works a lot better for the sardines, especially when the sun comes up a little bit and they get a little bit more finicky.
Why do you reduce the weight for sardines?
The way it sinks. You know, a little bit slower fall, a little bit more natural. With the thread fins, they're always up on top. You know, that way a little bit heavier lead keeps the rig, especially for me being on a charter. And, you know, they'll tangle it up if you're familiar with that. You know, they're good at that. And sabikis, you know, if you're fishing every day, it price adds up. So I feel like a little bit heavier lead definitely helps out with that. So basically when I'm bait fishing, I always try to talk my charters into, you know, get the swivel right up there to the rod tip, swing it in, grab your lead, walk back to the live well with me. You know, try to hook one at a time, you know, make sure everything goes right in the well, try to keep it from hitting the deck. Because then again, like I said, having good bait is key, you know. So, yeah, after that, I will basically, I won't spend too much time doing that. I'll, I don't know, catch 2-3 dozen, depending on how easy it is. If it's really good and I don't have to waste that much time, I'll, catch as many as I can, as long as people are having a good time, and then I'll head offshore. So basically, anything like a 3/4 day or a full day on my charter boat. First thing in the morning, I'll start out bump trolling. And typically I'll fish 4 hook baits. I'll fish a downrigger on my right side. On my left side, I'll fish a mono leader. And then on one of my riggers, I'll fish a wire rig. And then on the opposite rigger, I'll fish another mono leader. Kind of depending on if the kings are biting, if there's some sails, some mahis, or some blackfins, bonitas and stuff around. Kind of mix match, that way I'm covered for all the basics. And on my stinger rigs, I'll fish a single J hook, with a number 4 wire, small swivel, to a just one stinger treble hook coming off the back. Anywhere from 50 to 65 foot on my downrigger. I fish a fish lead, kind of a trolling lead, and it kind of rides up into the surface area. And then also on my left flat, I'll pull a mono rig, and then I will also pull a strip teaser for a teaser. A lot of sails around this time of year in the summertime. With charter fishing, a lot of times people, they want to catch meat, they want to have fish to eat, but then, half the time, a lot of people enjoy just catching fish, turning the handle. So, basically, I'll start out doing that every morning. Typically the kingfish and everything, you get a decent bite in the morning, if you get lucky enough to land on them. And, I think Christian was here with you all last week, and he kind of explained, on the mono rigs, how you hook them, you bridle them and things like that with a rubber band. Now, on the wire rigs, I typically just hook my boat. And like I said, if the current's smoking, I'm just going to go with the current. I'm going to make my drift over my piece of bottom, things like that. If I get a bite, I like to hit man overboard. I have my dot. I call it connecting the dots. I like to connect the dots. And, if I go through the drift, I get bites in a certain area, I'm going to, keep going a little bit longer, then I'm going to wind everything back up, get back up sea, and come back down through that stretch of bottom. So, I spend my time in the morning doing that, as long as it's being productive, things like that. And typically, the sun gets up, everything's, slows down on the bump trolling a little bit, I will switch things over, I'll go bottom fishing. I'll do whatever it is that the people want to do. Sometimes you get people that leave everything into my hands, and there's, you get charters as well that people, hey, I want to go bottom fishing. I want meat. I want food. I want this and that. All right, whatever we got to do to make them happy. But so typically, bottom fishing around here this time of year, it's hit or miss. One day you get out there and the currents, you got about a half a knot of tide. Everything's good. It's going to the north. Get anchored up, have good fish, and then, the next day you get out there, now you got south tide. The water's dirty, the water's cold on the bottom, so you really never know a whole lot of what's going to happen here. So kind of got to be prepared for whatever. So on my bottom fishing trips, I'll get anchored up. Typically this time of year, everything's back inshore, anywhere from 60 to 100 foot. Get anchored up, and typically what I like to do, I like to start with a chicken rig. If I got the young kids on the boat, let them get involved. If they're catching grunts, that's fine. I like the grunts, them fish coming up and down out of the water column, it helps trigger, it gets your snappers and your groupers and things fired up. And the kids enjoy it. They love it. So on my chicken rigs, I started fishing fluorocarbon on my chicken rigs a couple years ago. I like to fish anywhere between 30 to 40 pound fluorocarbon. I did make some rigs. I don't know if you guys want me to show them to you now or possibly after the show. I can walk you through it. But I did use like a high vis yellow so everybody could see. And you want to hold this one right there?
What pound test is your main line?
It varies. You can use anywhere. I like to fish braid on everything, so on the chicken rig, I don't think it matters that much. But I typically, on my chicken rigs, like braid on my smaller reels, I'll fish like anywhere from 30 to 50 pound braid. Then on my, my little bit bigger stuff, I'll fish probably 65 pound braid.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me all right now, Mike? Basically, here's my chicken rig. Ugh, excuse me. That's perfect. So I made it out of yellow, because that way everybody can kind of see. So, basically I'll start with that. Hand over hand knot, fish 2 hooks. I like a little bit of slack coming off my main line. I feel like I get more bites that way. Basically, I tie just a double overhand knot there on the end so you can take your lead and just slide it right on there. Depending on the current, which it varies every day out of this inlet. I like mine long, but basically, I like to fish bonita. My charters, my bum troll, things like that. I have a lot of bonitas that people don't want. I'll fillet them out. I'll leave the meat real thin. Basically, I'll slice that in half and I'll cut it up into little triangle pieces. And believe it or not, your boat don't smell as bad as having a bunch of squid on there and things like that. And that bonita stays on the hook really, really good. So, and it's productive. Ever since I started fishing the fluorocarbon and things like that, I started catching much better fish on the chicken rigs. I catch a lot of big mangoes, catch a lot of mutton snappers, and things like that. So basically, I get the kids or whoever's involved on the boat with the chicken rig going, get anchored up, get some movement in the water, everything coming up the water column. I like to fish a single leader as well. And basically, I'll fish anywhere, depending from a 4 to 8, 10 ounce lead on the bottom to your main line, and then to a swivel, and then from there, I like long leaders. I feel like long leaders get more bites, especially if you got a lot of current, things like that. I feel like the more current you have, the longer the leader, the better. I don't know what it is. It definitely seems like you guys get a lot more bites when you do that. So on my single leader rigs, if I'm fishing a live bait, I like to start with 40. That way you can put a little bit of drag on them so they don't get you in the rocks, bust you off, things like that. But there's times where the water's crystal clear on the bottom, and just sometimes when things are just darn finicky. So I will scale down to 30 pound, and I'll fish a pilchard sometimes, and then grunt plug, or if you got, I love little live baby pinfish, things like that. And with the pilchards, I've noticed, a lot of times you go out there and you hook a pilchard to the nose or to the mouth, you send it to the bottom, you're like, man, the snapper's got to eat this thing. Half the times you don't get a bite on a live pilchard. And over the years, I started cutting the tails off, or throat hooking the pilchards and setting them down, and fishing a little bit longer leader, like I said, and started getting more bites. Definitely seemed like it was a lot more productive over the years doing those kind of little things with it. And then, certain people on charters, they get up there and they get their first bite, they're just setting the hook and try to tell people, hey, wait till that thing kind of pulls back down on you before you get too trigger happy with them. So it's if you got a big well, and you got a lot of bait, it's all right, especially when they're not being super finicky. You get away with it. But for me, the pilchards, cutting the tail off, or hooking them to the throat like that, has definitely seemed to be more productive for my fishery. If anybody's got any questions at any time, please feel free to ask. Yes, sir.
On your chicken rig, what size hooks are you using?
I bought a pack of hooks to bring in here. These are Mustad 3407 DTs, and they are 1 ounce.
That's what you use on your chicken rig?
Yes, sir. And too, like if you're cutting up your grunt plugs or anything like that, you can fillet out your grunts and cut them into little pieces. Yes, sir.
Straight or circle hook?
I use straight hooks and circle hooks. Yeah. So, it depends. It depends on the angler at most times. I like the J hooks, if I'm trying to get the kids involved, let them catch grunts, because, there's times where you have a bunch of bait pinned up or you don't, so sometimes, get the kid there, a little J hook, let them catch the grunts, and let the adults catch the snappers and stuff. So, also, what's that? Yes, sir.
You said hook them through the throat?
Yeah, on the pilchard. It seems like, you hook them to the nose, you send them down, and it just, a lot of times you come up, you got a whole bait on the end of your line and just no bites. And I started playing around with it. I started hooking them through the throat, started cutting their tails off, and ever since I started doing that, I feel like I got more bites out of the snappers. Yeah. So, I get my people set up, I get the kids involved, let them, or, whoever wants to fish a chicken rig, half the times you go out there and you catch a bunch of grunch, but there's plenty of days where you go out there and you catch some nice triggers, lanes, sea bass, it's kind of variety, you mix it up through the day. But get the chicken rigs going, we got a couple single leaders down, and then always fish a long leader. One of my rod holders, I have a designated rod, and I call the rod holder Rodney. Basically what I'll do is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like a three-way swivel. You leave a little bit of tag in for your lead. And then on my mutton rigs, I like to fish 50 pound. I do 11 arm lengths. Do like a 4 or 5/0 circle hook into a grunt plug. When you get your grunt plug, you cut your grunt plug up. You come down, the fin, get the fins off, cut it right there at the tail, and then when you go to cut the head off, you try to leave the guts, the belly. Kind of helps float that bait up off the bottom, get it in the water column. And the muttons, they like that. So you throw your leader out there, get it stretched out, throw your lead back there behind the boat, and I let Rodney do the job on that. Just put it in the rod holder, tell the people, hey, keep an eye on that rod. If you're fishing a chicken rig or a single leader or whatnot, and you see that thing get a bit, just put your rod in the rod holder, go over there and start turning the handle. And, if the sharks aren't so bad, which, that's a big issue we have nowadays, you can get away with it. But when the sharks are bad, they will find that grunt plug up in the water column and make for a tough day for you. But, are you guys familiar with the grunt plug, things like that? Okay. Also I like to, I always have a float line out there. I like to have a bait up on top. I'll, most of the time, if I got a bunch of live bait, I'll put me a live thread fin or whatever out the back. I got the 31 contender, so I got the little side rod holders, kind of out of sight, out of mind. Let that thing do its thing out there. And then, you always gotta have a spinner or two ready. With I'd say anywhere from 40, 50 pound leader with either a J hook or a circle hook, whatever you feel more comfortable with. And you never know this time of year. A couple weeks ago, we caught 30 head of mahis out there in 100 foot. We had the conditions, we had a beautiful change, and there was life. There was some bait there. So more times than not, you have the mahis and things swim up to the boat. So it's always better off to be prepared and have your spinner rod ready for that. So, also we're getting here in the, kind of later in the year where I love the mango fish personally. I love mango snapper fishing. It's a lot of fun, but the way I like to do it is it's kind of tricky nowadays because, the sharks can move in. But, if you start catching you some nice mangoes on the bottom, you get, feel like the sharks aren't going to bother you too much. If the sardines, you cut them up in little chunks. Start throwing 4 or 5 pieces out the back. Keep your eyes out. A lot of times you'll see them snappers raise up off the bottom. You'll see them in the water column. And it's nice having the spinners on the boat for that. You can, I would say I'd start with 30. And I would do probably, if you're fishing braid, you can get away with it, but you definitely got to put some extra leader on there if you are fishing the braid. Like a lot of my spinners that I fish for mangroves and stuff up in the water have straight monofilament on them for that reason, because they are very, very, very finicky fish. So I'll start with my 30. Everything I fish is fluorocarbon. Fish like a, I'll fish like these are 1/0s. I like the owners, a little bit meatier hook, put a little bit of heat on them, trying to keep them out of the bottom. But I'll start with that, and if you throw, throw 4 or 5 pieces, give it a minute, throw 4 or 5 more pieces, and all of a sudden you look back and like, oh shit, there's mangoes are up in the water. So what I try to do once I get them things up in the water column, I will take, I'll cut my chunks, and on my hook there, I will hide the hook. I'll try to bury it inside that chunk of sardine. So I'll throw me like 3 or 4 pieces, and then I'll throw my hook bait out there with them other pieces of chum and try to hopefully they sink naturally together. And once you get them things going on the spinning rods, I'll tell you right now, that is a lot of fun. A lot of fun. And the sharks leave you alone. You know, you can sit there and you can pick at them all afternoon, morning, whatever. And then if you don't get a bite on 30 pounds, sometimes you might have to scale down to 25, which scaling down to 25 pound, it gets a little tricky because, you know, later in the year that we're getting into, we do see them nicer mangoes. You know, you hook a 10 pounder and you got a 25 pound leader, you're fishing 30 pound braid, you can only fish so much drag without, you know, breaking them off right there at the hook or whatnot. So it gets a little tricky at times, but that's a really cool way to do it. And when I first moved here 8 years ago, everybody used to tell me, oh, you don't see the mangoes up in the water column here. First time I ever went bottom fishing here, I threw my chum, and there they were. They showed up. And I'd say I caught me a half a dozen of them, but after I started throwing all that chum, it was not the sharks, it was the king mackerel, so I couldn't get a darn bait through the kingfish to the snappers. So, but so I'll kind of go over a little bit about, you know, kind of the rods and stuff I fish, you know, bottom fishing, you know, my chicken rigs again. I have a bunch of stuff made up here and things like that. So, you know, like snapper fishing, I like to fish a little bit longer rod, a little bit more leverage, and I don't know, I feel like I can get them out of the bottom a little better and turn the handle, and I feel like once you get their head coming, if you're fishing a grunt plug or, you know, live bait there on the bottom, you know, once you initially get their head turned, get you a couple cranks on the reel, you got them coming. You know, you don't have to worry about breaking them off too much, things like that. And excuse me. And then like my chicken rig rods, you know, a lot of the times, you know, young kids and things like that, I use a conventional reel. I love these things, you know, even with charter fishing. I feel like, you know, you sit there, you take the time with somebody, you kind of explain to them, you can teach them how to use them without backlashing in it. Once they get used to it, I just feel like with these things over the spinning rods, it's definitely more, I just feel like yeah. If you guys got any questions or anything like that?
How deep are you running for your mangoes right now?
Typically this time of year, I mean, I feel like everything's inside 100 foot. You know, I'm typically mango fish anywhere from 60 to 80 foot.
Have you noticed them moving in with the hatchlings now?
Honestly, I've been fishing every day here for the last few weeks, and I'd say probably since the start of red snapper season, the current's been smoking, and they've been a little finicky. I haven't caught a whole lot of them here lately, but you know, I feel like later in the year it seems like it gets better. But the few I have caught here lately, they're full row. So I figured this next moon we got, fishing should be good. You know, it definitely seems like they haven't really lit off. You know, it's been hit or miss. You know, one day you go out there and catch you half a dozen or whatnot, but I feel like, you know, later in the year, I definitely feel like the snapper fishing is going to get better for us.
Do you do nighttime charter?
Yes, ma'am, I do. And that's the nice thing about nighttime charters. You know, you get out there and, you know, this time of year, there's a lot of grunts, you know, a lot of bait fish. And, you know, if you like to fish the, you know, the frozen sardines, things like that, you know, this time, you know, in the middle of the day, I mean, them grunts, they darn near eat you alive. So that's where I kind of, you know, rolled back onto fishing the pilchard, trying to avoid the grunts and things like that. Anybody else got any questions? Sorry, guys, I'm nervous. I've never been a big speaker.
Doing great.
Please bring the question. I can answer any darn question. Bring it to me.
Grab a beer, you're good.
You're doing fine, you ain't.
Thank you. But
Where's
yeah,
your
still breathing.
sweet spot? I've got a charter here.
Now you have to charter me for that,
Did you bring your book of numbers?
baby. Yeah.
Just one.
And again, guys, sorry. I've never been a big speaker in life. I've always stuck to myself. But here, so, you know, as I was talking about with the bum trolling, there's a local guy here in town, Zach Foltz, ZF Custom Rods. He builds all my rods, and basically I fish. It's 20-pound blank. It's a 7-foot rod. So basically, with the bump trolling and things like that, I'll tie bimini twists. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. Double line, tie your union or your Albright knot to that, and then with like my kingfish rigs, things like that, I'll fish anywhere from 30 to 40 pound fluorocarbon. Tie my Albright knot, and then not tournament fishing, so I'll take 9, 10 cranks around the spool and can never too much fluorocarbon. And then on my kingfish rigs, I will I'll fish wire, number 4 to number 5 wire. Here, I'll grab one out. So basically, this is like a one-time rig. It's I got the hooks here. Sorry, guys. So on my kingfish rigs, I like to fish. It's a mustad hook. It's a short shank. It's a 9174. It's a 1L. And I don't know if anybody can see that. I made a couple of them. I can pass them around. If not, if you guys want to come up and check them out. But I will fish a 1L. Then on my stingers, I like to fish. It's a number 6. For some reason, I like to fish a smaller treble hook. I don't know what it is, but it's not that it gets down the hatch. Half the time with these stinger rigs, everything's foul hooked. So I like to fish a very, very light drag. Even with the charters, the charters, they always get up there and they're like, oh my God, I'm losing all my line. And you got plenty of line on a reel, just be patient with it. But I would say I fish anywhere from 2 to 4 pounds of drag on my wire rigs. Real light drag, because half the time they're hooked in the body. The king mackerels and the real delicate skin. And there's been some big wahoos around lately. It's I've heard of quite a few fish, 50, 60 pound wahoos here being caught. I saw Sandy's name on the board with an 81 pounder. I don't know when that was caught. Was it recently or?
6 weeks ago?
6 weeks ago, so that's always an opportunity this time of year in the summertime. With the bum trolling, you catch the mahis, tunas, bonitas, and always keep your bonitas, like I was saying. But I haven't personally caught any big wahoos here in the this year, but I did. I've had a few bites. I had a big one air out on a long rigger bait about a week ago, and pulled a bunch of string. I'd say he's probably 40, 50 yards from the boat, and we pulled him off. And kind of a bummer. I was hoping to catch that thing. But I definitely feel like, the smaller treble hooks. I like these VMCs. They're the 9626 BNs, number 6. And good hook, strong, 4X. Make sure you always get the 4X. And then I like to fish on my live baits, the bump trolling for my sails and, my mahis. I like to fish a 6-0, anywhere from a 5-0 to a 6-0, depending on the bait. On my thread fins, I like to scale up my hook a little bit. I like a little bit bigger gap for the bigger baits. On like my pilchards or my sardines, I have no problem fishing a 5-0. I snell everything. I snell all my hooks. I like to fish anywhere from 30 to 40 pound leader. I don't think the mahis and things like that so much worried about it, but when you get down there off Stewart, if you're looking for the sails, you're bump trolling around, and if your bait's out there, he's half dead, he's rolling around, and you don't get the bites like you think you would. So I've noticed, scaling down a lighter leader, anywhere from 30 to 40 pound, smaller hook. It's a lot of current, like I was saying. You go with the current, keep that bait fresh, make it, present it, fish the bait. If you look back there and you see your bait, he's on his side, it's probably not gonna get a bite. Catch cooter, king mackerel here and there, but you always want to keep an eye on what you got back there. I'm always constantly looking back, seeing what I have back there as I'm fishing. Yeah, I've seen that bait, you know, a lot of times. If you've done the bump trolling, if you're familiar with it, you look back there, all of a sudden you see a cartwheel, you see a shank. And then he's back there, he's swimming straight again. No. It's time to change him. If you got the bait, I know if you're bridling them, you know, it's an extra step, but it's well worth it in the long run because it definitely helps having fresh bait. Anybody got any questions for anything?
So I got a couple questions.
Come on, bring them.
And please, I'm an inshore guy, Mark knows all my boats, and I'm trying to learn offshore because I'm now really addicted. Couple things.
Yes,
One,
sir.
red snapper, I read 1 day season, but I checked the fish rules and it says it's open season. I've been checking.
State waters.
State waters.
So basically, we get 1 day a year in federal waters to catch them. Federal waters is 3 miles outside the inlet.
Okay. So
Anything inside 3 miles is state waters. I've had buddies go out there and run 50 miles and catch their snappers, delete their track line, and I caught them in state waters. It don't work out too well for them.
No, yeah, I just didn't understand it. Okay, the next question.
Yes, sir.
And again, you mentioned two things, one treble hook, and two, somebody asked about circle hook or J hook. So I was under the understanding, and I'm not trying to call you out, that anytime you use live or natural bait, you have, bottom fishing, you have to use a circle hook.
Yeah, no, you're correct.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yep. So I will fish my circle hooks, but like I was saying, when I got the young children involved, and I'm basically bait fishing at that point. I'm catching my grunts, you know, you still catch your triggers.
I don't
and
always
you're like,
follow the law, but I
No.
wanna know the law, so I can start
Yeah.
cutting.
No, absolutely.
Cutting hooks off.
Yeah, no, definitely I fish anywhere from a 1.0, you know, any kind of, you know, light wire, you know, for double rigs, chicken rigs, I fish a lighter wire, you know, because them triggers, they got a hard mouth, things like that, you know, you look
But
at the
bottom
hook,
fishing,
if you feel
need-
good about it.
Bottom fishing, technically, you need circles.
Yes.
Okay.
And now, like on all my live baits, I always fish a circle hook. I love a circle hook. It's easy for charter fishing. All you gotta do, hey, let them get your bites, let them pull down on you. When you feel like you got them, just reel. Don't worry about setting the hook. Just turn that handle as fast as you can. And
Thank you.
but even, you know, I used to when I
Will triggers hit bonita on a chicken rig?
absolutely.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. It's the same thing as squid. I mean, it works, does the same purpose as a piece of squid. I mean, the nice thing about it is the skin, it stays on the hook. So even if you get all the meat beat off, at least you got a piece of skin on there to back you up in case you miss them a time or two. So. Anybody got any questions over any of that? Yes, ma'am.
You fish a lot with charter, with people and experience.
Yes,
What do
ma'am.
you use to bring them back down, drop them and release them?
I have, I don't know exactly what it's called, but it's basically a venting tool.
Oh, you vent them, you don't set them back down with the grip and the weight to release them?
No, ma'am. I vent them. You know, their pec fins there on the side. This girl third scale back. Basically, I have that little needle thing that lets all the air out. You know, very gentle with them. Hook a hole in them, and you'll hear the air come out of them most of the time. And then hopefully there's no sharks around. You set them back down.
I was gonna say, that's where the sharks come.
You know, there's been many days too. You know, where I've caught red snappers. You know, smaller, you know, short groupers, things like that.
Yeah.
And I vented them and put them in my spare well. You know, pulled off the spot just to let them go. You know. Yes, sir.
Do you ever troll dead baits or lures?
I do all the time. You know, basically like this time of year, there's so much live bait around, things like that. I feel like it's almost a necessity to go catch a live bait and go out there and go bump trolling. You know, I mean, it's hit or miss. You go out there one day, you know, you catch a handful of mahis, get you a few sail bites, and you know, and troll them. But I definitely feel like this time of year, it's much more productive fishing the live baits. And it seems like all you're fishing this time of year, much the better of it, it seems like it's inside 100 foot. You know, just with all the life around, the bait around, you know, it just seems more productive.
What time of year would you transition to dead baits or lures?
So basically, I would switch over, I would say, you know, late summer, early fall. You know, it seems like we get a little bit, you know, our mahi's pushing back up the road, you know, and our tuna, you know, our blackfin starts showing up, our sails start showing up. Seems like everything that time of year is typically a little bit offshore of the bar, so I like to, you don't want to run past them when you're trolling. I always want to keep an eye out for your changes, your edges, look at your temperature gauge on the ride out. If you see anywhere from a 0.2 of a degree change to a 0.5 degree to all the way up to a degree change, it's good to see. Early in the morning when you're running out there, you might not see that with your eyes. You might not see the weed line or the change, the grass line, but typically I like to fish my edges. I'm gonna look and say, the Sportfish boat, we fish all the sailfish tournaments here in the Bahamas, and we've had a very successful run here the last 4 years, and with the sailfish tournaments here. We won the Pelican Yacht Club 2 years ago, we got second in it last year, we got third in it the year before, we won the Buccaneer at Palm Beach, 2 years in a row, a couple more, and I will say most of my fishing has all come off an edge, a weed line, And there's times where you get out there and you can barely see it. You'll see a little bit of slick, a little bit of ripple to it, no grass, not much bait to it. But then again, you look at your bottom machine, you see that little bit, 2/3 of a temperature change, things like that. And a lot of your bites come right off of that little piece of water, Sometimes it's on the offshore side, offshore side. Sometimes it's on the inshore side of the change. What you got?
If you're out in the middle of the ocean and you see a floating log, how do you attack that?
It depends. If I'm running, obviously I'm gonna have my spinning rods ready. If I got some live baits in the well, or even some cut up bonita if the mahis are on it. If I'm trolling, I'm definitely gonna take my time and make me a couple passes on it. Get it on my inside, keep your eyes on it so you don't lose it, and make a couple circles around it and see what happens.
Do you troll like literally within 10 feet of it, or do you make a couple circles around it? Or
I like to keep a little space. Basically, if I fish my long riggers a ways back when I'm trolling. I like a little bit of separation, and basically I'm gonna make my turn. Basically where my long rigger is probably from me to you from that. Keep a little distance. A lot of times there'll be a rope or something under the water. Try to keep a little bit of gap there, so if he does each in, decides to go around it, you can maybe get lucky and keep it from breaking you off and whatever's there. Questions? Got one? So, anybody got any questions for me here?
Is that your depths again, when you're running out here, say you're going offshore, you usually start at about 100 foot for the offshore troll and live baiting for the mahis and the sails and them?
No. This time of year, I like to stay inside 100 foot, really.
Inside 100?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't know, just, the bar, you got the natural, the bar, I'm sure everybody's familiar with, the 80 foot, 70, 80 foot stuff, all that natural bottom we have. This time of year, I feel like bait's been really tricky this year. There's been a little bit of thread fins on the beach, 12 buoy, one day you have sardines, next day you don't. But I have marked a lot of bait on the south end of the bar all the way up to the north end of the bar. You can kind of tell by the markets, sardines, they're moving around real quick. And I just feel like even with the thread fins and things, cause I feel like the water's been dirty on the beaches here. It's not typically has been as pretty as it normally has. And with all the bait out there, my opinion, I just feel it's much more productive in that area. There's life there, and typically offshore that. Now, if you get out there and you find a beautiful edge or a change or some kind of conditions to fish, it's hard to tell this year. I feel like our mahi run the last few years, I'd say really the last 12 years, it's not what it used to be. When I first started charter fishing, I'm 35. I was 15 years old when I started as a full-time mate on a charter boat. And, our mahi, late spring, early summer run, we'd go out there and we'd catch 30, 40 head of mahis. We had good fishing. And typically I feel like, in the last few years, it's not the same. You have the conditions, you'll go out there, you'll find the most beautiful rip, edge, flying fish getting up, and just you're like, oh, I'm gonna get a bite here. And you set out, and there's just really not much to it.
I think they've all turned into kingfish.
What's
I
that?
think all of Maui turned into kingfish.
Yeah, so I mean, but it's hit or miss, you know. What was it? Like I was saying earlier, we caught, you know, just shy of our limit of mahis. I mean, they weren't the biggest, they weren't bailers, you know. I mean, they were all 5 to 10 pound fish. You know, it was right there at 100 foot. There was a grass line, and you know, on the offshore side, I trolled that day. Let's say it was about a month and a half ago. And we did get lucky, you know, we hooked a couple fish there trolling, and then we did get lucky enough to have, you know, a bunch of them up to the boat. We did catch a few on spinning rods there, where it's nice having the spinning rods ready to, you know, throw bait at them, or if you got to put a piece of cut bait on them, you know, to make it happen. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
When you're trolling, how do you troll?
What do you mean?
I'm saying is how do you troll? Do you troll north and south, or east and west, or southwest
question.
and northwest, or, you know?
No, absolutely.
Do you troll with the current? I mean, they're predominantly the current runs.
Are you talking about like natural dead bait?
Oh, ballyhoo.
Ballyhoos? Okay. So basically, I like to, kind of depends on the ocean. If it's flat calm, it necessarily don't matter which way you troll. No, I feel like if you get some ground sea, you get a little bit of, you know, breeze on it. I definitely feel like I said earlier, I like to fish. I like to look back, and I like to present my baits. So if I'm looking back there and my baits are jumping out of the water because I'm bucking the tide, and then it doesn't look natural. So I'll sometimes, you know, I'll change my angle, you know, like say on a down sea tack. If you're going with the waves and it's kind of rough, you go straight down sea, you look back there, half the time everything's surging. It's pulling against you, your bait's jumping out of the water, and then they come back in. You turn it, I don't know, 15 degrees, you know, you get a little bit of an angle on it, you know, like a side following sea. You look back there, everything looks much more natural. You know, things aren't jumping out of the water as much, things are swimming a little better, things like that. But I typically, you know, when I'm trolling, you know, from sail fishing to blue marlin fishing to mahi fishing, I like to do anywhere from 6.5 to 8 knots. I like to fish fast. I feel like, you know, a little bit faster I fish, I get a much more aggressive bite out of, you know, the sails, the blue marlins, things like that. But yeah, I would say definitely when it's rough, you know, if there's a little bit of ocean that I call it a tack, you know, the angle, the way you troll. A lot of people hate a head sea. I love a head sea. I love trolling into a head sea. I get a lot of bites trolling into it. Maybe it's because it's slowing me down and, you know, everything's presenting itself a little better. But, yeah. And then the trough. If you can get away with it, if you can deal with it, I love fishing the trough. Side to, dip your riggers in the water a little bit, you know, a little bit of rock and rolling it up. Yeah. Makes it fun.
You get some chung rolling too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you get plenty of that. Yes, sir.
Do you have a preference of naked bait versus skirted bait? And if you, aside of skirted bait, is there a color preference that you have?
I feel like everything in this world eats a naked bait. Blue marlin fishing to sail fishing to mahi fishing, for the most part, I fish for dink baits. I fish for naked baits. In my opinion, less is more. You know, also on my boat, I'm by myself. I don't bring a mate, I do it all by myself. I got my autopilot, I get my tack set up, hit auto, help charter, you know, help me keep an eye out, make sure I don't hit anybody. But there's definitely times where, you know, the chugger heads, mold craft makes them smaller chugger heads, the flat heads, the hooker heads, and you got the super chuggers. And, you know, if the grass is real bad, I definitely feel like the hooker heads, you know, the flathead mold crafts, they, compared to a dink bait, they don't catch the grass as bad. You know, you kind of wind it in, you clear your bait in the bubble trail. You know, there's times where, you know, sometimes I'll put a chugger head on a rigger, and if that thing starts getting bit, I will, you know, definitely scale up and fish another chugger head or so on the rigger or flat line, things like that.
In terms of size of valley, do you have a preference smaller versus larger?
A lot of people, you know, with the sail fishing, a lot of people fish like a small or a small medium. I'm not scared of a bigger bait. I feel like they can, you know, I feel like they can see it easier. You just gotta let them eat it a little bit longer. But typically, if I'm fishing a naked bait, a naked ballyhoo, I'll fish a small to small medium. I fish circle hooks when I troll. It's rigged a little different than a J hook. It's all rigged to the top of the head on a piece of wire to a swivel, and then I don't have that with me, but then you kind of put your hook through the eye of the swivel, and it's right on top of the head, and you can really make it swim amazingly if you rig it right, and yeah, it's productive. And then like on my boat, I'm by myself, like I said. I'll pull a squid chain. I only pull 4 squids, and then I will fish like a sail lure or Hawaiian eye or something. I pull a rubber ballyhoo behind it. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. If I wasn't by myself, I'd pull a natural fish behind it. I'd pull a mullet on a Hawaiian eye. I'd pull a ballyhoo on a chuggerhead or something. Get a little bit of bubble trail. Then on my right side, I'll pull like a marlin lure. Something that basically the way I look at it is if I'm trolling and I'm by myself and I'm on autopilot, and then all of a sudden there's a mahi or a sail or something back there pulling on my teaser. If I have a real fish behind it, I can't tease that fish away from them, where you'll have an angler go over there and pop out your flat line or wind your rigger up and try to hook that fish. And in all reality, I don't know what it is, but them sails and mahis, they love that marlin lure. Just let it sit there and they eat the crap out of it. So, anybody else question? Which Galba?
Which one is better,
Dead shrimp or live shrimp? I don't know. I think anything will eat a live shrimp though.
Well, I don't have a question, I just have a comment, which I think you'll like.
Yeah.
A lot of questions came up, like ballyhoos naked, how do you troll them, whatever. The best advice I can give you is I spent about 10 grand in guides 18, 19 years ago up here, and I saved all that money in gas now. And I highly recommend, a guide that is this passionate about what he does, that you get 2 or 3 or 4 of you together. You wouldn't take more than 4 probably.
I take up to 6 people, but
Well, yeah, 6
yeah,
advice.
it gets a little crowded.
Hire a guide and go with him and just seeing it. I just went down to Keys. I'm an inshore guy. I just went down to Keys, and I'm addicted now to deep dropping with 3 and 5 pound weights. I mean, we got red grouper and huge muttons, and I'm like, oh my God. So I'll be spending 1,000 in rods. But what do you get for a charter?
I'm 900 for a half day, 1,100 for a 3/4, and 1,300 for a full day.
Well worth it. I mean, when you start thinking about gas, and I figured it out, it's $12 an hour for maintenance on my boat.
Yeah.
Just the engine maintenance. I highly recommend you hire a guy that's this passionate about it, and you'll learn so much, and then you can go try to catch fish.
I appreciate that. Again, guys, I'm sorry. I've never been a big speaker in front of people.
Great.
I've been nervous as heck. I'm just seeing if there's anything I wrote down that I may have missed, which I'm sure there is.
The numbers. You looked up the
Yeah. You charter me, I'll give you all the numbers you want.
6, 11, 13.
So, too, I kind of talked about this. I'm not nervous anymore, guys, sorry. Bait fishing. I was talking about the number 4s, the number 6s, and the number 8s. I know I said, the red works very, very good on the sardine. Definitely you run a 12 buoy in the mornings, and, it's crack of dawn. You won't really see them, you really mark them. I have a commercial kingfish permit on my boat, so there's times where I have me and my mate off the big boat to where, we'll go out there and he hates red. He's got to fish the green. And I like these Hayabusas anywhere from the number 4s to number 6s. I don't know what it is. A little bit smaller hook, but the red works really, really good on the sardines with the lighter leads. I guess it's just much more of a natural fall. And so my bump troll and things like that, will you hold this? I'll tie a bimini. And then I'll fish, if you're fishing under 20 pound, you're only allowed 15 foot a leader, IGFA. anything over 20 pound, you're allowed 30 foot a leader from your bimini. You're allowed 10 foot of double line, things like that. So there's basically, I got my bimini here. Bimini twist, which is, if you're not familiar with it, it's a double line. And then I'll have my, which I call it a wind on, 2A snap swivel. You know, the snap swivel, and then I fish 9 foot on my wind ons, and I fish 6 foot leaders. I like a little bit of separation. I don't want that snap swivels, you know, if I'm sail fishing or whatnot, I don't like that swivel right on their tail. I like to try to make it a little bit longer, try to keep, you know, from that snap swivel opening up or whatnot, which it happens. You know, it's fishing, anything can happen. So even on my trolling, you know, my trolling stuff, I basically on the big boat when I'm fishing, like I say, we're fishing, you know, the Pelican Yacht Club, we're fishing these sailfish tournaments. We fish a 7 on 50 pound fluorocarbon, and excuse me. And same thing is what I do on the charter boat. I fish, you know, 9 foot wind on to a 6 foot leader. And then some people like mustads, some people like eagle claws. You know, I like the eagle claws. I like the 2004s. Hook's been around a long time. I've won a lot of money off that hook. It's helped me pay for my boat, so I'm gonna stick to what I know. But the mustads are also a very good hook. And I know, you know, a lot of the people will fish a 6-0 on their smaller ballyhoos, trolling as well too. And you crimp all the loops. You know, you can tie a perfection loop if you'd like. I crimp everything on anything over 40 pound. Anything under, I think you kind of gotta tie a perfection loop. Things like that. Are you guys familiar? Do you guys know how to make chicken rigs and things like that? You guys all kind of, you know, it's kind of a complicated knot. I mean, I'm willing to sit here and go over it with you guys if you guys like. Anybody? Yes. Anybody got any more questions? I mean, kind of covering, you know, my summertime fishing here, you know, from the bait fishing there and bump trolling to the bottom fishing, and hopefully we can get away from these sharks and just catch some snappers again.
Garrett, good job, man.
Thank you.